And we continue to follow breaking news out of London, Ontario. Not guilty rulings in the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players in London, Ontario. CP24's Jamie Goodfriend joins us live in the studio. Jamie, you are following the very latest out of the court.
Yeah, we're following some breaking news. We've been waiting for the ruling on the from the judge, and from what we're hearing so far is that Carter Hart, Alex Formenton and Foote have been found not guilty of sexual assault. We're still waiting for the official word regarding Michael McLeod and Dillon Dube, but according to many of the legal experts that we've spoken to today, all signs are pointing to the same ruling. And at the heart of this trial was consent, and whether or not the sexual act that happened in that hotel room back in London, Ontario in 2018, whether or not it was consensual. And the judge, part of her ruling earlier today, said that she didn't find the complainant's evidence to be credible or reliable, and said that the Crown did not prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And speaking with Monty McGregor earlier today, and I asked him whether or not this was the kiss of death, and he said yes. In fact, actually, we have Monty once again. Thank you so much for joining us, Monty McGregor, criminal defense lawyer. We're just right before a commercial break, you and I were speaking. We got some breaking news. Foote added to the list of the accused who are found not guilty. What's your reaction?
It's going to be each of the individuals, frankly, Jamie, because the prosecution really rests on the complainant's testimony. And since it was so disbelieved in such a significant way, they're all going to be not guilty. And this is not a surprise, frankly, if you paid attention to the specifics of what was happening in this case.
I'm curious from your opinion as a criminal defense lawyer. This trial has had some major roller coasters, a mistrial, removal of the jury, and I'm wondering if you think that played into to support the defense by having this tried by a judge alone rather than a jury of their peers who might, incorporate some of their emotion and their personal opinion into their decision, whereas the judge, who is a trained legal professional, is only going to look at the evidence that was presented in this case.
Yes, well, I like to tell people it's a people business, so you don't know who your trial judge is going to be before it starts. And what was important here is that, because this case, based on the evidence, is sort of ideal for a judge, because there's so many problems with the complainant's evidence, frankly. And if that was known or speculated in advance, I would think the defendants would have chosen to have a judge right from the outset. Of course, often you want a jury because then you're looking at 12 people having to come to a unanimous decision, and lots of people might take the notion as defending hockey players that there would be hockey fans in the jury. So I think there was a lot of factors that went into making that determination, and it's important that if one defendant wants a jury, everybody gets a jury. That's the way it works. But to me, after the complainant finished her testimony and the jury was excused, it was obvious to ask for a re-election from the defendant's perspective. And I think it's important to note that, from my understanding, the Crown didn't want to have the judge. They wanted to have the jury, despite the realities that would have meant that the complainant would have had to re-testify in her entirety. So to me, the decision was appropriately made, and this decision and judgment is thorough and complete and really provides very likely no confusion or no stones left unturned in making the decision on all of these accused.
I think it's safe to say that a lot of the sex assault advocates out there that have been supporting EM outside of the courthouse, and many who have been paying attention, are probably going to be very upset about this, the court's decision. But at the end of the day, the justice system, it worked. Everyone had, the defendants had a right to a fair trial, and this is how our system works. And what would your message be to those who are going to be extremely upset about today's ruling?
Well, I'd ask them to look at the judgment, because there's a thorough analysis of the evidence. Because to me, as you watch the evidence of the complainant come out, from a defense lawyer's perspective, if you do this every day, there was ample ammunition to critique in its entirety her version of events. The trial judge did that. And as much as you want to support victims, you have to remember that just because something may be morally repugnant and that you don't agree with, for example, a woman being in a room with 10 men having sexual activity with some of them, that doesn't necessarily mean it's unlawful. You have to look at the actions of the accused, and these gentlemen were clearly innocent. The right decision has been made.
But there are times when there are victims who make these claims where there was a situation where there might have been consent at the beginning, but consent can stop at any point throughout a sexual act. And while that might not have been the case in this particular case against these 5 individuals, that is something I think that's important to note. And for any of the sex assault victims who might be watching out there and debating whether or not they want to come forward, obviously many of them are tormented about whether or not I should come forward because the public scrutiny that could come with it. I was wondering if you can kind of elaborate a little bit on that, and what's your message to individuals who might be a little deterred about coming forward to the police with an accusation that they were sexually assaulted?
It's a very horrific and traumatic experience, but not saying anything and not trying to assert your position is also something that you'd have to live with for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So I've helped complainants before, and it can be very traumatic. And fortunately, there are provisions in place to allow the complainants now have lawyers and have levels of protection. And it's a personal choice because it can be terrible, but it can also be relieving in the end and cathartic to have the answer that you're looking for.
And right before I let you go, Monty, we're getting some breaking news into the newsroom. Dillon Dube found not guilty of sexual assault. And we're also finding out that Michael McLeod not guilty of sexual assaults. The judge reading out her analysis for the charge of being a party to the offense against McLeod. And I'm guessing we're still waiting on that. But we're hearing from the major charges. It seems as though all 5 have been found not guilty.
That's no surprise and was expected. As you analyze the evidence, it's clear that they're factually innocent and they're legally innocent, and now they're free to go. Monty
McGregor, we really appreciate your time and perspective today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and have a good day. Thank you.
Bakari, we'll send it back to you for now.
KCP 24, Jamie Goodfriend live in studio, giving us the very latest in these decisions as they come down from Justice Carroccia. Thanks, Jamie.